Hey, this is Jose Galison of No Way Jose. You can find me on YouTube. You can also find me on just about anywhere audio podcasts are at. Today, my guest is Rothbirdian of Twitter. Masha is another name too. Today, I just wanted to shoot the shit with the homies. It's a white boy summer, so that's what this is here. By the time this has come out, you guys will probably have seen the Tower Gang fucking episode with Dave Smith, and we might be having a little bit of white boy summer there too. So we'll see if those themes come in, mesh together. Maybe there's kind of a time suck when it comes to podcasts because my shit gets released later. But we have a theme and we're playing with it for fun. Today I'm bringing on, like I said, Masha. So it's white girl summer on her end. And yeah, I just wanted to have her on just because she's a homie. She's kind of like my Twitter girlfriend. How everyone has their office girlfriend or wife or whatever the fuck. That's what she is. But yeah, as always, if you want to give me money, patreon.com, just No Way Jose 2020. I kind of like these shades. I think I might start rocking these more. It's like alleviate some of the awkwardness of like looking at a blank screen. Now you don't have to look at my eyes. Whatever, a little dialogue on my end. If you guys want any of my merch, go check out TopLobsta.com. He also has plenty of other merch. He's also the shit. So definitely check him out. With that, let's go and bring on Masha.
Hello.
What's up, dude?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me here. I guess cheers for White Boy Summer.
Yeah, cheers. I got coffee here, but then I'm transitioning to fucking Sour Monkey.
Nice.
This shit's actually good. I don't know if you ever had it.
Yeah.
It's a 9.5%, and I love sours. I don't know. I really like sours.
Yeah. I actually do know. I think that my boyfriend called it. It's like baby's first craft beer because it's what you would get when you want to get drunk, and it's a really good deal, and it's 9%. I mean, it's a really good deal in terms of alcohol. Mm-hmm. I'm just having a Bud Light because, Nick Ashley had a Bud Light on his infamous Vegetarians appearance.
Yeah, you guys will notice I drink a lot, like you people watch, and on these episodes, I usually have like a couple beers just to kind of like help me relax and like while I'm talking. And it's usually either these, the Sour Monkeys, or PBRs. Mm-hmm. That's my style. My style when it comes to drinking is fucking is like cheap white boy beers, fucking sours, or like whiskey, and that's basically what I drink. So. I'm sensing a little bit of a fucking accent. Are you responsible for Donald Trump's election in 2016?
It's this issue where whenever people talk about the Russian interference and like Russian ads, and I really want to butt in and say they put ads on Facebook, like it's just ads on Facebook, right? But I can't talk about this because I can't say it in this accent, right? So for that argument, I've always just had to shut it, right? Because it just sounds wrong no matter how hard I try to be reasonable about it.
It's like when you get accused of being a racist, there's no way that you can like get out of there without sounding like more suspect. Like, I swear, I have a black friend.
Yeah. And, actually, like, seeing what you and Tower Gang, and, Jeremy Kaufman have been doing, I've been really inspired whenever people read at me to just be like, I am whatever you say that I am. So, like, you're a rape apologist. I'm like, yes, I think that rape is great.
Yeah, right? That's awesome.
Yeah, right.
Oh, did you see my tweet the other day? That was like a joke.
Yes, I will not apologize for rape. Why would you apologize?
Yeah, I said I'm not a rape apologist. I would never apologize. That's how you get caught.
Yes, exactly.
I'm surprised I didn't get more ups. Maybe I've just cleansed my following that well, where they just expect it. They know. But I used to be able to catch some rees and shit like that. I don't know. I've been getting a whole lot less re, but whatever. I mean, I'm fine with it. I feel like that's like success in its own right. So
yeah, and also I think enough people mute and block us so that by the time you say something that's re-worthy, it doesn't get the same re because the people that used to re have already moved on.
Yeah, but I mean, whatever. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create a circle where it's re-free. I'm trying to expose and identify the re and move on from there. And hopefully they self-segregate. That way we don't have to resort to physical removal. So
yeah.
So I don't know if we kind of do this a little out of order. Even if you want to introduce yourself to the audience, I know you operate you're a little bit anonymous on Twitter. I mean, I'm actually operating under a pseudonym too, so that's no knock. So if you want to,
I have Rothbirdian on Twitter, but my first name is Masha, which is my real name, which is I guess is really fairly common Russian name. So it may be hard to dox me. I live in Boston right now. I'm from Russia originally. I moved to California in 2004. I lived in the Bay Area, and then I moved, here to Boston in 2015. So I have the Russian accent, and I also have the California upspeak girl thingy going on.
You said 2004 you moved from
Yeah.
Russia to Cali?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know how old you are. You
So
about
I
my
was
age?
10. Yeah. So I mean, I am 27
Okay.
right now, which is
Okay.
actually kind of terrifying to think because I'm like I'm now in my late 20s. Oh God.
I just turned 30. That's a weird feeling.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but I moved to California when I was 10, which is a really great age to move because your brain is like a sponge, right?
Mhm.
So I was in the 6th grade. You pick up English fairly quickly because you are just absorbed in it, and you're young, and it's easy.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know. I felt like you were gonna be a little bit older when you moved. I didn't know
Yeah.
your story, so I
Yeah.
don't know if you have anything else you want to add. Give your little intro for the people.
I guess
Or
what my
seems good.
background is. I know.
We don't have to go to specifics.
Yeah.
Just
No.
what you feel like will inform the audience of where you're coming from.
I would say that I have been a libertarian for a very long time. I began identifying that way when I was 17, but I really didn't really get into the anarchist sphere till I was 24. It just when I was 17, I was living in San Francisco. I was in college, and I've always felt like I don't quite belong politically, because when you're a kid from Russia and you're in the Bay Area of California and people like communism was great, and then you go home and you're like, I'm not one of you. I'm not a Republican, but I'm not one of you, so I don't know what I am. And then I just met somebody in college who loved Ayn Rand and Ron Paul, and he was like, your ideas have a name, you're a libertarian. And then I spent the next 7 years be like, okay, I'm a libertarian, then that's it, right? And it's and I was listening to podcasts beginning maybe like 2014. I was really into the ideological dark web stuff. So I listened to Sam Harris a lot, and Dave Rubin and Joe Rogan. And then in maybe like 2017, I was listening to a lot of Molyneux with my then boyfriend, my now ex. And so I think that like Molyneux had really primed me to think about the state, right? And then I began listening to even more podcasts when we broke up, because you need something to fill the silence. And I was listening to the Free Man Beyond the Wall podcast with Pete Quinones. And I know this sounds really basic, but I was just like, government bad. And then I thought, oh, wait, there's this concept of no government, which is better, right? So I was this example of, somebody that was technically a minarchist for a really long time, but I didn't know what it meant. I just didn't have the concept of no state. And when I heard it, I was like, yeah, makes sense. If government is bad, it's better to have no government. And I've been binging podcasts ever since.
Yeah, no, a good way to silence that sad feeling on the inside is with intellectualism. That's a good way to go.
Yeah, basically. And also you just get used to having podcasts play all the time.
Yeah.
So then when you're by yourself, like, I need to listen to something else, right?
Yeah, so, hide from the feelings, bury yourself deeper into the spectrum.
Yeah, yeah, basically.
Take feelings and run far the fuck away from them.
Yeah.
I mean, to go, I guess this will be a rough fucking segue, but this is kind of like, that's like a dichotomy there, feelings, autism. So let's move to another false binary. I feel like, or at least I think it is. I feel like you're well known for being a little bit more degenerate, but in a weird way, you also have aspects of being trad. So I didn't know if you wanted to touch on the trad degenerate thing. And to preface it, to kind of like give an idea where you come from, I consider myself in a lot of ways very degenerate, also very trad. I've been married for like 10 years. I have 2 kids, both girls, both older. If you look at my life, I have 2 acres. Like if you look at my fucking life, it's very trad. But like I've done a shitload of drugs. I've done a lot of fucking, lot of like before. Obviously, I got married, but that's, and I don't actually even look at those as bad things in a way. That's just the kind of the way I am. But once I got married and had a family, settled down, doesn't mean I'm not open for some fun every now and then. But like, so I feel like there's kind of like a false dichotomy there. I mean. And I feel like maybe we can tie this into like, some of your women hating, because it's like, I feel like a lot of this like trad women shit. I don't know. I'm rambling now. I'll let you go ahead
That's
and
okay.
go.
I would much rather have you do it than have me do it, right?
Oh, go for it. No, I like to
Yeah.
use you to soak up the hate because you're,
No,
I
I
can.
mean, I would much rather have you ramble on than me ramble on, because when other people ramble, I think, oh, they're rambling. I get to learn more about them and hear them think out loud. But when I am rambling and I listen back to it, I'm like, oh my God, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, you know?
Well, this is the
Yeah.
Masha rambling show, so.
Yes. So, be careful what you wish for. But
Mhm.
yeah, I would also say that, like, I would even say that we need a different dichotomy. It's not so much of a trad and degen thingy.
Yeah,
It's more of
degenerate.
it's really more of like who will get upset when you don't like their lifestyle, or who will moralize about their lifestyle. But I would say the same. Like, I've also done a shitload of drugs, which I may regret saying this on air later. But yeah, like, and and I'm really glad that I turned out fine. I feel like, I guess I was fortunate. I've been more into uppers than I've been into downers, which is healthier maybe.
I like
And yeah, she says that she now drinks a Bud Light. But I just find when people talk about the stuff, it usually calls for a please validate the way that I am living, which is actually bugs me more on the sort of edgy side, right? Because if you're so edgy, if your lifestyle is so alternative, you have to be okay that other people don't like it, right? Like, if you're a degenerate, you have, like, it's in the name, right? You have to be okay that other people don't like it. And when other people say, I wouldn't want you in my Hoppian covenant or something, right, then I don't know, chill out about it. You'll find your like-minded people.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing about myself too. Like, I like even when even when you and I talked about should I dress up for this interview in the Burger King Nick Ashley outfit, or should I wear something formal, I honestly was like, you are gonna make the final pick, right? Like, you are going to lead this, right?
Yeah.
And
Which
that
that
is,
kind of plays into your trad shit because that's like
yeah.
you in a I don't know if I necessarily defer to men or whatever, but I know you have a different perspective when it comes to that, and you are, which makes sense. It's kind of like you, I guess, in a way, sort of bettering yourself in a certain sense of like you're trying to. I don't know. You go ahead. You can explain it better than I can. You know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, right. Or, like, sort of, I think actually, I feel like I'm such a Nick Ashley fangirl right now, but, Nick Ashley had asked this of his, Twitter followers, and he asked people to say, what is the most trad thing about you, and what is the most gen thing about you? And I said, like, my most trad thing is that I look to my boyfriend to make choices for us, and I will play the, submissive role when I feel like it's appropriate, and I feel like most of the time it's appropriate, right? Like, I will follow, and I think that going forward, I will be fine, as I have done before when I live with a partner, like doing the dishes and sort of being the follower out of a couple, right? But on the, degen side, aside from the shitload of drugs, like, I'm in an open thingy, right? I would be fine not being in an open thingy, but I am in an open thingy. I also don't really see the point in getting married in any sort of legal or formal way. In terms of the government, I would say that it doesn't really matter, because if you have kids with somebody and you live in the same household for long enough, the government will see you as married anyway. So I formalize it under the government. And because I don't believe in God, I don't really see a point in like doing a sort of ceremony that signals to other people that we're married in the eyes of a greater power, because I don't believe in that greater power, right?
Yeah.
But like, I feel like really the sort of culture war fight, at least in our sphere, ends up being between the people that are really uncomfortable that other people might be different from them, it might view their lifestyle as being wrong. And I have actually a lot more, respect for the trads that say, I think this is wrong because it's a sin, right? Because if they really believe that it's a sin, it would make sense for them to say, I believe this is wrong, and I will not use force against you, but I will nag the hell out of you because I think that this is wrong. But then, there will be people like, well, the high time preference, right? And, and if you do this is against liberty because this high time preference activity, right? I'm like, oh, okay, well, you shouldn't eat cookies because it's a high time preference activity or something, So I have a lot more respect for people who will actually say, I believe this is wrong on a moral level, than people that will try to be like, well, for liberty purposes, we should have this kind of a society, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it is. I feel like we have such an issue. This isn't the first time I said we have such an issue in this community of like binary thinking. Yeah. And this applies to this too. And it's like, I don't know, like say with the high time preference behavior, people will always go on about like, I mean, yeah, there is something to that argument of high time preference behavior, but it's like at the same time, like you can dabble. Like I said, before I got married, I've been with plenty of women. Like at the same time, if I was in a relationship, I was in a relationship. And then when it comes to like drugs, like I've had issues with drugs in the past, but for the most part, like usually like how I interact with drugs, which I don't even really interact with them much anymore. Yeah. But if I were to, like I could totally go to a party, do some blow, and then not do anything for like a few weeks or whenever it shows up again. I'm not like clamoring for it. So I mean, dabbling is not an issue. But
exactly, like there is a drug that I had an issue with before, and I was high basically every day for like 2 years, and I was functional, but it was really bad for me. I've done damage to my liver, etc. Oh, I mean, I'm assuming I've done damage to my liver. I'm not sure. But then like I did it for the first time in over a year at Rockfest. It was really fun. Mm-hmm. And it was a case of like, I'm not being given a whole bottle. I'm being given enough pills for the night. I will have fun right now. And when I wake up the next morning, I'm not going to have a bottle to touch. Right. So,
yeah.
And, and it's the same thing with like, when we talk about being, monogamous or not, right? There is this whole like spectrum, and and when people talk about it, I'm like, I'm not fucking everybody I meet. Mm-hmm. I'm like, if you look at my life, I could as well be monogamous. Yeah. It's just technically open in case like a good opportunity falls on you from the sky, right? Right, and it's much more like a principle thing than it is a practical thing.
Yeah, I do find it super funny that some of the biggest, like, seems to be, like, obviously, you could say maybe this is like an argument from authority, but it does seem to be the people who have the strongest opinions on, like, trad or, like, monogamous marriages.
Are single people.
Yeah.
They're like, single people.
Exactly.
Right, right.
What are you talking about? Like, what the fuck? I mean, and that's obviously it's not an argument, but it's just like.
Yeah, I know. And it's like, and I feel like that's the only reason why I actually get, like, vocal about this stuff is because like the people that are preaching for what should be normalized are people that want that thing, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're saying like normalize this, I'm like, get it in your own life. Like find somebody that wants you and find somebody that wants the kind of lifestyle that you want. So if you want a trad wife, oh my God, become a desirable candidate to be a trad wife. If you want somebody that wants your kooky alternative lifestyle, find somebody that wants your kooky alternative lifestyle. And if you're not finding somebody that wants that with you, maybe the problem is you, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And, and you had sort of mentioned bettering yourself. I feel like I've had such a reputation on Twitter lately as somebody that hates fat people. And I don't hate fat people. Like I consider myself fat right now.
If we're gonna make a tier list of who goes against the wall, they're towards the top. So
yeah, but it's really more that like I don't really get mean about it unless fatter women tell me to eat more, right? Or when it becomes like, oh, we shouldn't like. Everybody's beautiful in their own way, and we're gonna call this curvy or big boned or big, or I'm like, I don't know. I would call myself fat right now. I used to weigh a lot less than I do. I can't fit into most of my closet. I'm trying to, like I'm doing intermittent fasting. I'm working out. It's a lot harder when you're not high every day and don't feel like eating, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had issues with pills way back in the day. It's really good for weight loss.
Yeah, I know. Like, so, right, and I feel like a lot of people are be like, you have an eating disorder because you are trying to eat once a day. And I mean, this evening isn't applying because I'm going to drink beer throughout this podcast, right? I just want to yell, be like, I am doing sober what I did high. So I was dieting on God mode before, right? It's really easy to, like, I'm 5'7", I was 118 pounds. It's really easy to do that when you don't feel hunger.
Yeah, I'm 5'5", 220.
Yeah. Right. And so it's kind of like amazing that in our sphere that is really excited about markets and being a better competitor and providing value, that people think they can like nag the market into changing its preferences.
Mm-hmm.
And you can try, obviously, like you can create norms, but I really don't think that if you post enough, like if you sort of convince people, like if you need to convince other people that you're hot, or if you need to convince other people that a certain body type is hot, you cannot negotiate desire.
Yeah.
And right, and it's yeah.
I mean, if you have no issue with it, it's like one of those things that like, then okay. But if you're, because I do get where you're coming at. For like, I don't feel like you. I mean, you kind of do the same thing that a lot of us like shit posters do, but you do it like with fat people. You'll make posts, but it'll be something along the lines of like, hey, you want a good man, maybe better yourself or something like that. And that's not to mean you can't find good men as a fat person, but if you
everybody's desperate somewhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what your goals are. I mean, sure, yeah, there's someone out there that might be into that. There are decent looking dudes who are into different things. Like, I'm well known for being big into thick chicks. Like, I mean,
right. But I think there is a really big difference between fat and thick, and I really hate. Right, and like sort of this is my autism moment, right? Is that like thick used to mean something, curvy used to mean something, and I would say like right now on my good days I could call myself thick or curvy. On my bad days I just feel fat, right? But it's like thick used to mean something. Thick didn't mean you're 200 pounds.
Yeah, I always try to emphasize the hourglass concept, because that's my thing. Like, if you have an hourglass, and like it's like, because what I always say is like, from like when it comes to me and my preferences and like a woman, like I just like an hourglass. Whether you're 110 pounds or you're 180 pounds, if you can somehow keep that hourglass, cool. Like, but the problem is like you usually get to a certain point where the hourglass becomes more of a circle.
You get to a point when you're taking a photo at like a MySpace angle, right?
Yeah.
And you're like pushing your, I don't need to demonstrate, right? And then once you find yourself doing that, you're in in bad territory, right? And people will often come at me.
Pro tip for the young guys: if all you can see is tits and head, it's probably a fat chick.
Or like if you can't see the shoulders, right? If you can't see how wide the shoulders are, really, or if you can't see the arms, right? Mm-hmm. And I say this to somebody like, I hate showing my arms because I feel like they're too flabby right now, right? Mm-hmm. And so like a lot of this is just coming from me being open, right? Like that right now. I hate how I feel in my body, and I'm trying to get to a point where I feel better in my body. And you won't eat for 22 hours, and people are like, you have an eating disorder. Like, I wish, right?
Perhaps you do. I don't know. I have talked to you, and you do seem way too focused on the skinny thing. You are a pretty slender woman, but I mean, whatever. I mean, that's your goals. I mean, it's kind of like no matter how friggin' big I get, I will never think I'm probably big. I mean, if anything, like,
you're a man, it's different.
Yeah, well, but it's the same concept, It's just a matter of bettering yourself, and I feel like that's a normal concept for people who are trying to better themselves in any way. For me, I'm more about like I want to be big and masculine and muscular, and like so. But at the same time, there's no such thing as perfect. So like there's always, and so for you, maybe you have more of the idea of being slender, and that's like what is appealing in your head. And like, don't get me wrong, there can be, for both sides, there can always be an extreme that can be an issue and be not good. But for the most part, I also think to some extent it's like there should never be such a thing as perfect. At the same time, that doesn't mean you need to kill yourself over it. So like, when it comes to being skinny, like for me, like, I mean, I'm not going to go get sauced up 24/7. I have other priorities.
Yeah, and I'm having a beer with you right now, right? I probably should not be having this beer with you, right? Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. There's something to that. I mean, even when it comes to like intellectualism or anything, any pursuit, you should always be striving to be better. So, and I mean, I totally get that. I actually think that's especially within the liberty movement. I think people should actually be a little bit more focused on the physical, because I do think I actually did a whole episode a while back, which
I really loved, by the way.
Oh, yeah,
even though I was not your target audience, I really loved that episode.
Oh, the one with Clint and Travis. Yeah. That one was good. It was just a lot of it. And like, yeah, we talked about like the basics of like working out and stuff, but a lot of it went into like how like just being well together physically is a good. It helps you sell things. It's kind of the you actually I think made a tweet about this recently, but you kind of compared it to the
just make more money, bro.
Yeah, just make more money, which is like people make fun of that, but it's legit, and it's the same idea with that. And like I always try to make the point when I talk about the just make more money thing. It's when they say just make more money, he's actually talking about wealth. He's not talking about specifically money. So it's a matter of like what you value, and that can literally be your body as well. So whatever gives you value. I mean, we being more Austrian economists, whatever the fuck, I can't think of the word. Austrian economics, we know that like value doesn't necessarily have to be money. So that can be literally something like your health, all sorts of shit. And I do think
can I make a really trad take right now? If you're a woman, looking good is praxis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it'll get you so much farther in the world. Like I was talking about someone that was kind of big name. I'm not gonna throw out names the other day in the group chat, and I was talking about how like if they just worked out a little bit, even just a little bit, it would go so far. Because especially like the game that I'm in right now, I'm basically in propaganda. That is my like what I'm doing as a podcaster is essentially propaganda. Whether you want to assign negative or positive connotations to that, that's what I'm doing. But like so something like being well together physically goes miles when it comes to propaganda, like when it comes to like how you sell a message, because you are the vessel that is selling that message, and people look at you and like, I mean, I might be a big old fucking retard and I kind of am, but I feel like people look at me like, oh, this guy, he has his chest up.
You can appeal to fellow retards you're kind of retard. Yeah,
but there's something to like being physically together where people look at you and be like, oh, well, he probably has his shit together a little bit more. Not really, but people have that idea just because you present yourself better.
And it also makes a big difference in terms of feeling, and sort of control over your life, right? I know this is really Jordan Peterson thing, and I have myself said we don't need 10 more libertarian Jordan Petersons, but the idea of cleaning your room, I think like that's kind of how I look at, intermittent fasting, is that I feel like a lot of life is not up to me, right? What happens in the world is not up to me. What's done with my taxes is not up to me. What's happening in Boston, in like Massachusetts and in the US, it's not up to me, right? But it's up to me to regulate my hunger, right? It's up to me to sort of train my body to be used to a different eating cycle. It gives you a sense of, control, or when your shirts begin to feel better, when your shirts begin to fit better and you feel better after they fit better, right? It really goes a long way to feel like I am in charge of something in my life and I am not a slave to my impulses, which actually is which I respect a lot from the trad crowd when they talk about freedom being not succumbing to impulses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're walking around, as I often do, and you smell fast food and you just think like, oh, that smells amazing, and you imagine yourself eating it, right? And then you think, just because it would feel good right now, and just because I'm craving it, it doesn't mean I have to do it. I will have my meal later, and I will put a lot of care into that meal, and I'm gonna be, it's gonna feel special to me. I'm gonna take a photo of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's something. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you were hitting on something there that you were kind of, because we were talking earlier on the trad degen kind of dichotomy, and you were hitting on something there that it's like it's about being a slave to your impulses. I completely agree that you shouldn't be a slave to your impulses. So like, and that's kind of, I think, to some extent, the crux of where people are coming up with the degen thing and how it's a high time preference behavior. Like, yes, I get it. If you cannot control let's talk about sexuality. Like, I do think there's a difference between someone who say, let's say you've been, married for 15 years. You guys are in some sort of weird swinging thing or some shit. You guys have somehow managed to negotiate amongst yourselves or some shit to where you guys are comfortable or whatever. Like, I mean, that's just one example. I can think of many others. But
let's think about porn.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry,
yeah.
but you should do your example first, right?
Yeah, but you've worked this out amongst yourselves. There's a difference between that and some sad, lonely girl who's using sex as a way to fucking boost her ego and make her feel value in the world. There's a miles difference between that, and I don't think that's healthy behavior. But also something like sex is enjoyable. We as humans enjoy sex. So if you can negotiate experiencing that, having that experience while not also being destructive or hurting yourself emotionally or whatever, like, I mean, it's kind of all up to you and how you feel about things. But there's miles of difference between those two things. You know what I mean? So, and maybe I didn't use the best example, but I mean, I don't know, like fucking. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know if
you could do the same things to a different extent and like with a different mindset, right? So like, I feel like I've been arguing with people about porn more often than I watch porn, right? But it's like there is a very big difference between like your wife's been upset at you and you just really want to jerk off faster, and porn is going to help you jerk off faster. Versus you're a 20-something-year-old man, you have a shitty job, you go home, you jerk off, you go to work. You go home, you jerk off, you go to work. You go home, you jerk off, you go to work. There is a very big difference between that, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like if we don't say it in a nuanced way, and especially if women don't say it in a nuanced way, it just comes off as nagging.
Yeah.
Or, if you talk about casual sex, I think that, like especially on the female side, I feel like the mindset is almost more, destructive than actual behavior. Because if you're trying to prove something to yourself, if you're trying to prove to yourself that I'm an independent woman, I don't need anybody, it's going to end badly. If you're trying to fuck your way into feelings, it's going to end badly. And if you're truly in a time of your life when you're open to whatever, and if you're genuinely fine if somebody doesn't call you, then, or if somebody doesn't text you the next day, that's really different, right?
Which I would totally say if you're a chick and you do a one night stand, you shouldn't expect a call. I mean, I'm not saying that you ever, saying that there aren't ever relationships that are born out of one night stands. But I know you've told me before. But at the same time, I feel like it should be assumed if you're banging on the first night, don't expect a call. It's pretty standard procedure.
Right. And I would say that if you're expecting something to happen, you're fucked, right? And also I feel like it's not healthy if you're expecting something to happen, because you're not doing it with, like, you're trying to sort of manipulate your way into creating a relationship with somebody. That's not it, right? Whereas if you generally go, like, if you're generally okay, right, when you go in and nothing happens afterward, that's when I feel like it would be better for you. But I guess my tale is, I guess since I've pointed it out to if you're hearing this on audio, you're not going to see me like pointing at my face excitedly. But like, if you want to hear my first day with my current boyfriend, like, we got a couple of beers. We went back to his house. We had sex. I left. He gave me a piece of pecan pie that he had made. And it's almost 2 years later, right? So, but it's like, but I feel like that wouldn't have happened if I had a mindset of like, okay, I'm gonna, fuck my way into a relationship now. It's more of two people who are like, hey, we have chemistry, and
Yeah, me and my wife, we I don't remember exactly. It's been so long, but we met up and we were gonna like have like a movie night and then like go on a date the next day. And she lived like an hour away from me, so I ended up staying the night. But we didn't do anything, and we both wanted to. We've talked about this before, but it was like we both were like, if we do, like, we both really want to. But there was this like, we both knew and this understanding that if we do, that it kind of like sets the tone of the relationship. Which I'm not saying that no one should ever bang on the first night, but I do think it's good practice that if you really are like, I really like this person, maybe wait at least a day.
That and also, like, many men will have a different opinion of you, right?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And sort of right, and I feel like sort of like this is the thing. Like, don't do this stuff if you're not prepared for other people to judge you about it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, no, there is definitely something to that. Like, if you I mean, it's different if maybe you guys have communicated and talked about this, but if
Mm-hmm.
you sleep with someone on the first night, I do feel like that generally sets a tone of like this isn't serious, and that's not an all-encompassing thing, and that's kind of like why we didn't. I don't know if maybe how you guys talked about it and like, or if it just kind of worked out that way. But I mean, that's how it was for my wife. We didn't, but I swear to God, the next day we did. But it was kind of like it was just to set the tone of like, hey, we both really like each other. There's really chemistry here, and we both talked about this later, and we're like, we both felt like if we did, it would set this tone of like this isn't serious, and we were like we both were really enamored with each other. It's actually kind of adorable. We fucking went on a date, and then like I kind of never left.
Yeah, but that's really cute, right? And it's happened to me before, right? Like you know, when like you have an experience with somebody that's like, I do remember when I was younger and it was somebody that I was seeing, was actually somebody that I ended up living with, and we ended up living together pretty quickly because it was like I would call my mom and she would be like, he's still there. I'm like, yeah, and I think it's really cute when it happens that way, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And it will also add, like, I feel like I'm trying to sound like somebody that knows something about dating and relationships. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm just getting older.
I guess
I'm just getting more comfortable, but I don't feel like I'm getting wiser, right? But I feel like it's always really good to talk about stuff so that nobody has the wrong expectation. And I know this sounds really silly because I feel like as a girl I probably didn't need to do this, but right when it's the first date and you're going home with somebody, I would always try to have a conversation where I would say, I'm not making any promises. I don't have any expectations. Because believe it or not, like, even if you're a girl, there are sometimes men that end up being like, I thought this was something. And you're like, I don't know, I changed my mind about you, right? And it also actually takes all the pressure off the guy, because most of the time the guy doesn't want to say that to you. And if you say that yourself first, then But I also say, like, when I talk about this, I don't think it's a good idea for most people, right? And whenever this happens, it's always like this mindset of that we either need to say that this is inherently evil, or we should promote it, like, or
binary,
like we should pound it, just be like, I believe in your right to do this, and I'm a good libertarian, so everything is neutral, right?
Yep.
And I feel like both sides are so annoying. Yeah.
No, we are. I think I said it earlier, but we are so cursed with binary thinking. Yeah. It's funny how much we like read about the duopoly and shit, but yet we are some of the worst binary thinkers there are. Like, we are so autistic that we are in our like categorization mode, that everything has to fit neatly in perfect little categories for it to work in our fucking spurg brains. And I think that's actually one of our biggest flaws in this area. And I think. I mean, I've said it many times, but like me reading Konkin really kind of exposed me to like how I feel like thinking along a spectrum makes more sense. And then like for with Konkin, that's more along like the private public dichotomy when it comes to like businesses mostly. Yeah. But that applies in other regards as well. Like with the trad degen, it's really more of a spectrum. It's really not one or the other. Everyone wants things to fit neatly in one little perfect thing. Like, is Target a fucking private company?
Yeah.
Yes,
I
yes,
mean,
and no, not
like
really.
This last year, right? Like after this last year, it's a topic that is impossible to avoid, right?
Yeah. So I mean, and the same thing. I feel like so many of these fucking dichotomies that we create are very much like not really dichotomy and somewhat more of a spectrum. I guess we kind of touched on the political. Yeah. So I kind of wanted to know what your opinion is on a lot of these, like the talk to like the political tactics as of late, because it's kind of funny that you kind of end up being one of my like biggest fans, but I'm like well known for being like an agorist. It's like
and I would not identify that way.
Yeah. So I'm like not at all for political involvement. Yeah. Although I try not to be a cunt about it.
Yeah. Sort of like you're not the vegan of the
agorists.
Yeah. Of the political world that's saying that I don't believe in political involvement as other people try to get politically involved.
And not to jump to our next segue, that kind of works perfectly with like the next point we'll probably talk about, like atheism. And I feel like these are lessons I've learned from being an atheist, and that like being the annoying, edgy atheist, no one fucking likes him.
Like, I'm not a part of the system, right? Right? It's like, imagine a party and people are talking about topic X, and then you ram into the sort of circle of people talking. You're like, I think topic X is stupid and I don't care about topic X, right?
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, if you have to loudly yell, I don't care, then you're just doing a sort of a, disservice to your cause, right? But I would say that I don't want to sound like I'm trying to just be friendly to everybody and be like, I'm in the middle ground kind of thingy. But I mean, in terms of my vision, I would, consider myself Aaron pilled. Aaron, from TLE, in terms of like, I would be excited if no matter who you are, if you were just a more radical version of yourself, right? So if you were a new lib, I would much more excited if you were like a full out commie, right? And if you were,
there's a lot of crossover between me and Aaron's light way of thinking. I just don't think that the avenues he thinks will work. He's a little more optimistic in some senses than me. But go ahead, sorry.
And I would say that I would say that I see that. Like for my own life, I want to move to New Hampshire. I see New Hampshire as the future. I see the Free State Project as the future. And I feel like my last sort of my last sign was when I was at PorcFest. I saw the kids and they were running around maskless in a sea of 2,000 maskless people. And it was kind of my last sign of like, I can't have a family that's going to be surrounded by people wearing masks and people caring about this shit, right? So like, I do see that. I guess my view is that I just want to end up somewhere where I could write it out and have kids somewhere that are going to lead normal lives, right? But like short of that, I don't blame people that want to change the Libertarian Party messaging. I would say that I'm really excited that the LPMC is doing what they're doing. And I know, like we've heard this analogy from our based King Kaufman, that it's like trying to like imagine being a gay man and trying to convince other people that sucking dick is nice, right? And that's kind of what we're trying to do right now as a movement, is trying to be like, hey, don't you think that if we did have a government and if taxation and stuff and blah blah blah, and we basically sound like a gay guy being like, can't I convince you that sucking dick is nice, right?
I swear, I love dick so much. Like, you would love it too, but it's like not everyone has the same values.
But, right, if you were doing that, wouldn't you want other people, like, wouldn't it be worthwhile for you? Like, wouldn't it feel meaningful to at least know you have tried to make other people understand why you enjoy it, right? Or, I have made this, analogy before. It's like the sort of political version of I can change him. Right? And we probably can't change him, but wouldn't you want to at least try to convey who you are? So when he makes the choice not to be with you, at least you know that you have shown who you are, right? And maybe the best we can do is the LP can finally signal we are a party of radicals. We're not Joe Jorgensen or Gary Johnson or, or any of the milquetoast shit. But I don't blame people that want to change messaging just so that they know at least they've been properly represented. Even if people reject them, at least they know that people are rejecting them and not some caricature or washed out version of them.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just don't think it has to be a, like, not everybody that is in the LPMC is thinking, well, we're going to vote our way to Uncapistan, right? I think that a bunch of people just want to pay dues and get a hold of the Twitter account so they can wreak some havoc.
The people who do. There are people who do. And I actually completely agree with you, and I've talked about this before, that, like, in the sense that if we could magically get a grip of the entire LP and we could also ensure they could somehow magically stay a message for like eternity or even a good period of time, yes, that is the correct message. The Kaufman method, the like, hey, we're not going to change the world. Like, hey, all we're trying to do is signal to those who, we're kind of like essentially promoting a product and hoping to catch those that are interested, and understanding from the get-go that there are people who are not interested in, and stop trying to cater our message to people who don't give a fuck and will never give a fuck. But my biggest issue is I just think that's a fool's errand, and that it's going to naturally revert to the fucking milquetoast bullshit that it's been forever. and that the shit that we're doing now is a blip. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Fucking prove me wrong. I don't give a shit.
Right.
But
And like, right, like if you just view it as I want to send a better signal in hopes that somebody at least will get me better, I totally respect that. I don't think we can vote our way out of this mess. I don't think we're gonna, have a Ron Paul wave. I feel like this last year is the biggest black pill that we could ever get, although I guess knock on wood, or as my dad would say, like knock on your head, right? Right. But I don't blame people for wanting to at least like have one last sort of shout about who they are, right? And at the same time, like if you live in a red state and you're a base Republican, then why not, right? I feel like when people talk about this, it's like, well, you have to do this, and this is the only way. Well, some people are going to be better at doing this thing, and other people are going to be better at doing that thing, right? And And like right now, look, I haven't moved to New Hampshire yet. In the meantime, I really hope that the Massachusetts Mises caucus gets louder, right? And takes over the Massachusetts LP, right?
Yeah, I will
So
say
it doesn't have to be either or, it just has to be like, what are you doing right now in the phase of life where you're at and in the location that you're at?
Yeah.
And not everybody's going to move to New Hampshire or Saipan tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I will not to get sucked into the whole agorism politics debate, but I will say, because that's a frequent talking point people use, is the division of labor concept of well, some people are better at other things than others. But it's like, okay, but there are people who could be say for politics per se, it's like, well, there could be people who are better at politics. That doesn't mean politics is a net positive. It could still be a negative or a waste of time.
Yeah,
and
right.
There are
And if
people
you
who are
put your
better than
resources
others,
into one area and it means that it's this counterfactual of or an opportunity cost, right?
I mean, we could have a market where there's a division of labor, and there's some idiot somewhere who's really good at doing something that provides no value. Yeah. And it doesn't mean we have to go well, he's doing's awesome. It's like, well, I mean, maybe. I guess the market will show it out in the end. We'll see. But let's move on to. I kind of wanted to ask you about your thoughts on the atheism, theism things. That's been a big topic as of late.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a teenager again.
Yeah. How's that?
I don't know. It just in terms of people having this argument about what should God mean in your life, and are atheists oppressed or are Christians oppressed, right?
No one's fucking oppressed there. It's
right,
so annoying.
We are yelling at each other on Twitter, right? And if you just view it as socializing, it's so much healthier. You just view it as socializing, right? But again, I feel like as the same thing with the chat stuff. I find myself just opening my phone and being like, "You're all so mad. Why are you so mad?" But I think that you and I are really similar to this, and you've talked about this before. I think you've said it really well, that you're an agnostic atheist, and that's how I would sort of categorize myself too, is that I don't have evidence of there being a God. So therefore, I don't believe. It's not because I know there isn't. It's just because if I don't know, I'm not going to reject the null hypothesis, right?
Yep.
So just like I don't have evidence of Santa or a flying spaghetti monster, right? But I don't definitely know there isn't one, right? I just don't believe. But I think because I didn't grow up with anybody pushing faith down my throat, I never was militant about it, and I never felt resentful. I also, it is also right, if you grew up Jewish in the former Soviet Union, nobody believes in anything. Nobody practices anything. And then when you live in the Bay Area, nobody, it's kind of a free for all, right? So because I've never felt the pressure against it, I mean, I've never felt pressure to believe. I've never felt sort of resentful of people that did. And I would say that the people that really, really care about it probably wouldn't want to associate with me. And then the people that believe but aren't going to pressure me, we get along just fine, right? For God's sakes, I'm going to a Christian book club tomorrow night because we're talking about a book that I like, right? And I'm not... right. And so I'm not going there to argue. And if we like the same, it's my favorite book. So we're going to cover my favorite book. It means we have something enough in common that we might get along, right? And I feel like this all just kind of came out of like somebody making an edgy Twitter, or somebody trying to make an edgy Twitter joke, and somebody has been like, well, like this movement doesn't like Christians, and then everybody just trying to out edge each other.
Yeah, no, I find it fucking so annoying on both sides, because you have the one side, and I understand, say like, because you sounds like you never an angry atheist face. I did. I was raised very religious, so like when I kind of like came to the conclusion that holy shit, this is all just stuff I've been propagandized to believe my whole life, indoctrinated, whatever, which is true, but it doesn't mean it's not like my family had any fucking like. They believed that they had it right, and they taught me what they thought was right. And I get that. I mean, for a period of time, I was upset about it and angry, and that's kind of where the angry atheist thing comes from. And so I can totally get where people come from. Where they're coming from that place, and it's like it's more just like a phase. And I've just come to the conclusion that it's not beneficial. And I actually do completely believe that like I would prefer, if I could, to get people to not have this what I think is illogical thinking, but I actually am starting to come around more that there's like utility to it. But even then, on the other end with this shit is it's super fucking annoying. There's so many people who are like while I do think there may be some utility to like using religion in a liberty type perspective, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of annoyed with all these like, I guess you could call them religious maximalists right now, where it's like they're like, this is the way, like, you know, Christianity or libertarian is just God without, or Jesus, or fucking Christianity.
It's like whatever. Christianity without Christ.
Yeah, I'm like, cool, okay, whatever. We can kind of play this game with. I mean, you could probably be a fucking Muslim and be like, well, libertarianism is just fucking Islam without fucking Muhammad or whatever the fuck. And it's like,
I mean, I think
depending on how you interpret it, sure.
Like, I feel like anything that any like political or ideological obsession is religion without the figure, right?
Well, the problem is too. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, like, I do agree that I think that would be a net positive for society if more people believed in God and went to church. Yeah. Because they're channeling this right now into other avenues, right? So I feel like the mascarons would probably not be mascarons if they went to church, right? So I feel like for most people, it would make their lives better if they believed in something greater than themselves, and if that was their moral compass, and if their moral compass was not the state, right? Yeah. I just feel like you can make this like anything you care about, and if you happen not to believe in God, it's going to be the religion without the God, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, especially when like, because the problem is everyone looks at their pet religion as, well, this says do good things and don't do bad things. So it's like, I can totally see how someone would be like, well, how is that any different from my political ideology? It's like, because obviously you're going to think that both of these things are do good things and don't do bad things. So like, and I feel like any religion, because the problem is with religion is you can kind of interpret it however the fuck you want to some extent. That's why there's bajillion denominations of Christianity. I'm sure the same applies for Islam and Judaism. And I don't really know the specifics of each one, but it's like you can interpret it a bajillion different ways.
So I mean, there's this like joke. If you put two Jews on an island, you're gonna have 3 different synagogues, which actually you could say about libertarians, right? Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I just get annoyed with that, and this may come off as condescending. I kind of don't care. I actually would much prefer that we had to some extent, that more people got involved in religion, because the modern day interpretation of Christianity is generally like, hey, let's do good things and not do bad things, and so like. And don't get me wrong, and I actually have my qualms with what the Bible says, and I think there are actually issues in the Bible that, you know, are actually not good. But the problem is through a modern day interpretation. We shouldn't kill people for obscure shit?
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is we have this modern day interpretation, and I'm cool with the modern day interpretation. I think they're wrong, the modern day interpretation, but I will encourage the modern day interpretation because it's generally a good thing. So if we can get more people, because I think the majority of people are dumb. And I think having this prepackaged ideology that is, hey, do good things and don't do bad things, it's great for dumb people. It just is. I mean, and I'm not saying all religious people are dumb. I mean, there are super smart people, but for like something you could utilize for the masses, religion is kind of perfect in that regard. I mean, but you do run into issues too, where it's like we've had issues with religion in the past where it has the opposite effect. So you are kind of like, it's a double-edged sword in a lot of ways. But I don't know. It's just annoying. People have like maximalists one way or the other.
Yeah.
The angry atheists are annoying, and the religious maximalists are honestly kind of annoying as well because it's kind of like I don't know. Anyways, go ahead.
No, it's okay. No, I was gonna say, what about the Crusades? And it's like, well, what in a godless society? It would be San Francisco on crack, right? And you're just sitting there, and you'd be like, I don't know. I feel like more people would have better lives if they went to church. Like more women would be happier if they had kids and married and stayed at home, right? I don't think we would have the shit show of 2020 if more people believed in God and had kids.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, when you try to like prescribe it to everybody, then you're just like, and I even forgot why we were having this argument about God. I feel like it's just like a Twitter thingy that kind of, became a, like, we can't have an Ancapistan without Christ, or we can only have an Ancapistan with Christ. And I'm just like, we're never going to have an Ancapistan anyway. So what are we talking, and I don't know. I just felt very much like, well, I'm an atheist, but I get along well with Christian anarchists. And I feel like I really like that their phrase of no king but Christ. And I wish that more religious people heard that message, right? Because when you walk around Boston, by the way, it's so depressing because you see all of these churches that are gorgeous. I mean, they're so old, right? They're beautiful, and outside you're just like Pride and BLM, and you're just like, just thinking like, what is Christian? I'm sorry, like what is Christian about you guys fucking each other, or like what is Christian about you chopping off your boobs and trying to be a man, or like, right? Like what is Christian about this other than just pandering? And I really hope that, the people that have a no king but Christ message get louder and try to convince people, being like, hey, is your king Christ, or is your king the state that says that this is how you should pander to other people that don't even share your views, right?
Yeah. I do want to say the no king but Christ thing. There, I was just thinking about just a little side remark. Do you find it very interesting how, and it kind of plays out a lot of like Matty Erickson's thinking, in how it kind of sets, one of the beautiful things about that is that whole Christian anarchy perspective is it kind of sets the tone for what's the word I'm looking for, the hierarchy of political ideologies, because while that is like the only king should be Christ, in some extent that's kind of an implicit concession to that monarchy is more proper than democracy. And I do think there's a lot of intelligence to be gleaned from that. I mean,
but you can make the same point without Christ, but I do agree with you, right? And actually, I think it was also Pete, right? I feel like a lot of my ideological progression I can credit to Pete, who talked about like, I would rather live under a king than under democracy. And I would say the same, because at least the king has some incentive not to imperially fuck it up. Get it? Imperially fuck it up. Right, like the king has an incentive, because at least if it's a total shit show, somebody might kill him or kill his family. Whereas in a democracy, the way that we have it now, there is no incentive to keep the people happy, and the bar for us like violently overthrowing it is much higher. Yeah. So I would say the same thing. I would rather live under a king than under this.
Yeah. The Russians know very well how quickly they can get off when the elites aren't doing so well.
Yeah.
All right, let's finish off on everyone's favorite topic, age of consent.
Oh, yes, right.
Why do you think it's okay for 13-year-olds to fuck 40-year-olds?
So, okay, I'm glad we're talking about this last, and I've had more beer to drink. So, yeah, I've been one of the people that's been defending Thaddeus Russell and his claims.
Was it 13 and 30 or 13 and 40? I forget.
So I think it was either Peaceful Slave Jay or Lee. And actually, I like both of them, right? And then, Jay and I get along fairly well, despite disagreeing on this. But they had posed a question to Thad, and they were like, if you're 13 years old and you have a tutor and you're sexually attracted to that tutor, and he says he'll have sex with you and help you with your homework, and he's 40, is that rape? And I was on the side of like, it depends. And immediately your mentions are like wood chipper memes and people telling you you're a pedophile and they want to kill you, and you know, right? But I would say that and you know, I think actually, again, Jeremy Kaufman, right, said this really well. It's better to have these conversations so we can think through the stuff as a movement, or oh my god, I sound so cringy when I say as a movement, right? As a sort of community of like-minded autists, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's better to have these, you know, conversations and think out loud for stuff. So when other people ask, we at least have an informed and thought out response, right? But I don't think that we should, like, if in my NCAP stand, I wouldn't want an age of consent. It would be either were you forced, like did somebody physically hold you down, or if you're questionably young, it should be like, are you cognitively able to consent? And in a magic world, we would be able to, like, I don't know, determine your cognitive ability and try to sort of distinguish grooming from, like, I don't know, I'm a 13-year-old, I thought the guy was sexy, right? And I say this as somebody, like, I was 13 in my freshman year in high school. I had a 16-year-old boyfriend. I was excited about that, right? And so much of it varies based on where you grow up and how you were raised. And I'm sorry, like, in the past, this was a lot more common, right? In the past, a lot of people got married like 14, 15, 16, usually to older men. But I think that I don't see a problem with, like, talking about this stuff. And I think that a lot of people have been right in saying that the sort of wood chipper memes are the racism of the right, in a sense that if it's anything that could be bad, you must come out and signal, I am against rape and abuse of children, right? And if you don't say that, then people will assume you're pro-rape and pro-abuse of children. And I often find myself, like, getting so annoyed when this, you know, comes up, because people will be like, well, if you were 17 and the guy was 20-something, we should kill him. And I'd be like, do you want to kill my ex-boyfriends? Right? Like, this just comes back to this, you know, like, you know, personally, I just end up asking the question of, like, which one of my exes would you wood chipper? And I think it ends up, it's such like this annoying thing where people, like, I will totally go and murder that person that I think had bad relationships with somebody, right? And you're like, would you really? Like, like, it would be one thing if it was your kid, right? It would be one thing, but like when you're just like, well, that person deserves to die, and I would wood chipper him. Yeah. And you just sit there being like, okay, tough guy, right? Yeah.
Well, it's funny thing is you kind of hit on the point that, ironically, the whole, like, my thing with this is, like, what you just pointed out, the whole virtue signaling of we should fucking kill them is, in a non-ironic sense, that's kind of my answer to that. There is no magical age of consent.
Yeah, no.
At the end of the day, like, right? Me as a father, and then I guess
Sterner
like
has entered the chat.
Yes, exactly. It's like, well, I will fucking, you know, like, I will deal with that. Like, I mean, I think, you know, actually, like, the tweet I put out that actually, like, Clint mentioned on his show is, I remember I can't remember how I worded it, but it's basically, like, age of consent is that age at which I no longer find it rational to put a bullet in their head. Like, and because I don't give a fuck, because everyone gets so caught up on, like, can the child consent? And it's like, this is such a slippery slope of, like, when can you physically consent, because you could be like, well, you're 30, but you're kind of dumb,
it's a
so
power
you can't
hierarchy, right?
Yeah, you can't technically consent. Yeah.
So say that I am fucking somebody that I love and he doesn't feel anything for me.
Yeah.
Is that not a power hierarchy?
Yeah.
Right? Like, or say that, like, or like if it's like one person cares more than the other. Okay, that's a power hierarchy. Is it okay for a 20-year-old to fuck a 40-year-old? That may be a power hierarchy, because a 40-year-old might make more money or something, right? Like, you could find a power hierarchy anywhere. And when we start talking about this, we sound like the left, right? And like, you know, like, I think it was actually his account has been nuked. I don't remember his new name, but he made a really insightful tweet. He was like, fucking a 6-year-old is not the same thing as fucking a 17-year-old, right? But it's like this magical line of 18, which the US government said is, it's like people forget that they're anarchists. And people are like, well, the government said it's 18, so therefore your brain flips on magically at 18, right? And you just sit there being like, okay, well, what if you didn't grow up with the government that said this is the line, right? it was kind of amazing for me because like I didn't get raised with this magic line.
Yeah, and it's like it's just
Right?
so
And it's just like
it's just so ironic that like the age of it's like what magical age do you feel like they can consent? I don't feel like the crux of the issue is what age they can consent.
Yeah.
The crux of the issue is at what point are the perpetrators of this not gonna not feel some sort of recompense? Like that's the real issue. So it's like, I mean, if you're a 40-year-old fucking a 30-year-old, you're probably gonna find out real quick. And you know, say we were in Magical and Capistan, they're not gonna probably take too kindly to it. So like, you can still say technically that child consented. Like whether they consented or not, it's kind of I don't give a fuck. Like. If some 50-year-old
can you convince your dad not to go murder your 40-year-old lover, right?
I mean, if my 13-year-old is like, hey, I consented to this 50-year-old, like, well, I don't give a fuck.
Right. Cool. Like, which is so much more reasonable, right? I know this sounds really weird, but like that's so much more reasonable than like, sorry, men on the internet be like, well, I would chipper him, right? I'm like, who the fuck are you, right? And you know, or like I will get comes like, well, if I was your dad, right? Because I mentioned something like when I was 13, I was saying like a 16-year-old. Because I'm sorry, I was a freshman in high school at 13, right? I'm gonna date, right. But like, if I was your dad, I would have been like, you're not my dad. Problem solved, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then on Capistan, you wouldn't care about this, right? But it just ends up being that like if it's anything remotely sort of bordering on that issue, then we must signal that we would murder people, right? Yeah, and then I feel like it also just devalues the term pedophilia, devalues the term rape, right? Like, I'm sorry, the fact that like Thaddeus Russell said it depends on the feelings of the child does not make him a pedophile. If you call tweeting pedophilia, you're like erasing the experiences of people that actually got abused as children.
Yeah. And to be fair, like to clear up for those who you know
are not on Twitter 24/7.
So with the Thaddeus thing, you know how I mentioned just earlier how I had that tweet of, you know, I said the age of consent is that age in which I feel like it's no longer rational to put a bullet in their head when it comes to my children is what I put. Yeah. And Thaddeus actually, someone quote tweeted that in another thread, and Thaddeus was like, yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah. So the thing is, like, and I kind of knew this from the beginning, and I tried to kind of stay out of it because I was like, I knew the way he was wording it was insanely, retardedly clunky. But what he said and what I've been saying here are completely consistent within each other. Because he's saying that a child can consent. But that's not the issue. The issue isn't whether they consent or not. The issue is what is the person who did this going to experience? Like, whether the child can consent or not is beside the point. Especially, like, if you're looking from a Rothbardian perspective, technically the parents own the child. So, like, I don't know what you're getting at. Like, whether the child can consent or not is beside the point.
There are plenty of
it's whether you're okay with it or not.
Where children that age can marry with parental consent, right?
Yeah. So,
and then they get into this argument: are children your property, or are they right, or are you the guardian, but they're not your property, right? And it just becomes this autistic hole of discussion.
But the point is, like, Thaddeus is well, it looks awful. If you really understand what he's saying, he's kind of saying what I was saying, and he totally even admitted later that, like, yeah, I mean, he even said, like, yes, I think the child consent, but I also think parents can protect their children in whatever way they see fit. So there you go. These are the two.
My gosh, radical concept. Raise your children not to fuck 40-year-olds, right?
Yeah.
Radical concept, right?
Yeah.
Right?
And if they do, deal with it.
Like you probably went wrong somewhere, right? But the solution is to show how tough you are, right? And I find just so like infuriating, right? Because I feel like as a woman, it's easier for me to talk about this stuff without a whole inbox full of wood chippers.
Yeah, I had to walk on eggshells with all shit. But
right, like I really do, because like there are people be like, well, you don't think you were raped, but I think that you were raped. I'm like, oh, fuck you, right? So I would often give as an example, like when I was 17, right? Because I was 13 when I was a freshman in high school. I was 17 when I was living in college in San Francisco, and I generally don't like men my age. I like older men. Like it's always going to be this pattern, right? And so when people are like, well, I think you were raped, and you don't acknowledge it, but you were raped, right? And you just sit there and be like, what? Like, what?
Yeah, no, totally. All right, well,
Right,
we're kind of getting to the end. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about in this period of time?
On the topic of weight and rape and and degeneracy and
well, we touched on all those.
yeah.
So, is there anything else you wanted to hit on while I had you here, or not? Yeah.
I guess I hope that the people that are actually watching this, I hope that the crowd and pink shirt and mask and Bud Light makes sense to you. If not, I guess join Twitter and go through the meme hole. But yeah, it was really nice to talk to you. I feel like I was just kind of hanging out with a friend, and it got recorded, and I might be terrified to view it later.
No, I enjoyed it.
Wow, it's already 10:47. Wow.
Yeah, we went for a good while. But this was
sorry.
definitely fun. I'm glad I had you on. It was it kind of worked out perfectly that I had you on, because I'm supposed to have Dave Smith on next week. So I got to test out my new mic on you, where it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I'm just fucking with you. But it did kind of work out. It is kind of funny. I made a lot of jokes this week about because me and Tower Gang get a lot of accusations of being grifters, and it's like I'm having just a random anonymous account on Twitter.
Yeah, I know.
This week. So I mean, whatever. Okay. I mean, I'm just on with people I can have interesting conversations with, but I'm definitely glad we finally got to do it. I've been wanting to do it for a while. It's just a matter of finding the right time. It kind of worked out. It was last minute, but I don't know if you have any plugs. I highly doubt you do, but if you
I'm at Rothbirdian on Twitter. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been a fucking pleasure.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jose. Yes, it was nice to talk to you. No. I am very sorry for any rambling that I've done and for any oversharing you might not have wanted to learn.
No, it's completely okay. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. You don't need to apologize for anything. Yeah. Did you say your boyfriend said some shit that you should apologize less than I say fuck? Because I say fuck a lot.
No, it was not my boyfriend. It was a Twitter friend of ours, so probably I shouldn't mention on air. But no, my boyfriend just I think that my boyfriend is just used to me apologizing all the time that he tunes it out. It's not really see it anymore. But I think I did a good job of not overly apologizing this time.
No, you didn't apologize too much. So with that, you can find me on No Way Jose YouTube channel. Also, I'm just about everywhere audio podcasts are at. Give me money at patreon.com. It's just No Way Jose 2020. Like, share, subscribe, all that good shit. I'm also on Odyssey now. And with that, I'm out. This has been fucking fun. Thanks for coming on, Masha.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Jose. Hope you have a good night. Bye.
All right, you too. Bye.